Hi, I'm Ethan Hunt, and I just wanted to share my testimony with you guys today. So I wanted to just share some stuff that happened in my life, how I grew up, and what I struggled with growing up. And I grew up a Christian. My dad was a pastor my whole life. I grew up traveling around different churches, and I was always homeschooled. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, except for the occasional people I met at churches or in classes. And so, as time went on with that, you get older and start struggling with things. At a young age, I started dealing with lust. It was probably when I was 12, I think. I started having that problem. And of course, right off the bat, my dad caught me, and it was, we had a good talk, and he's always been there for me over it. And so, as time went on, though, other things happened, and as I'm growing up, I feel like I don't have the best relationship with God. So, time went on. I went to this summer camp, and it was inspirational summer camp. So they had a calling, so I wanted to be a part of it. And that's when I made the decision to truly chase after God. And at that point, I was just looking for something to fill the hole that was missing, because there was always something missing growing up. And I knew I needed God in some way, shape, or form. I've always known that growing up. And when I made that decision, they were like, it was a call to be a pastor. So they wanted to teach me all these things and all this stuff, but it didn't feel right to me at that time, like everything that they were doing and saying. So anyway, I moved on from that and learned a lot from it too. And I ended up growing up and hitting a certain point. I had a horrible temperament growing up, and I just had a horrible temperament. I don't even know what more to say about it. I would get mad at the flick of a switch, just because that's how I was. And I also was just always overly emotional over things, and I had my lust issues, because we know that just gets worse as you grow up. And I struggled with all that and didn't know what to do about it. So when I got my first job at Kroger after I looked around and just didn't really see anything that I liked. And it's not that I really liked Kroger either, but I felt something pulling me to it. And so after I made that decision, I went and took the interview, and I got the job pretty much right away. I was just a bagger and cart pusher, and at this point I liked to walk around the parking lot and just pray to myself. Still didn't know a lot of people. I was making friends slowly, and I was in the world now, so I had to be careful with a lot of things, and I knew that. But I ended up just falling away from a lot of things, getting into the wrong crowds as time went on, meeting a bunch of different people, and plenty of people I shouldn't have met, and that just really had an effect on me over time. And I just had to make a change at the end of the day. And as that time at Kroger went on, I met so many different people, and I started to change a lot. Not really in a good way, though. I didn't per se have as bad of a temper anymore at this point. And I still dealt with a lot of things, because I was only 16, 17 at the time. And so I had so many troubles with people because I knew what kind of people I shouldn't be around, but I was too much of a people pleaser because I was in the world now. I wanted to be able to be friends with everybody and anybody I came across, just because I wanted to learn and see how people were and do all that kind of stuff, because I've never had that experience growing up. And so whenever all that happened, I ended up meeting this girl. It was my first real girlfriend. And whenever time came for that, it just wasn't right. And whenever we got really into the relationship, it was bad right off the bat. There was always something off about it. And she lied to me right off the bat too, because that's just how it goes sometimes. And so as time was going on in between everything, I ended up falling away from praying a lot. I wasn't really having a relationship with God anymore at this point, because I didn't really pray, I didn't really read my Bible, and I went to her church every Sunday, but I didn't feel anything. There was no connection there. It wasn't a spirit-filled church, so there was no spiritual connection whatsoever. They'd read a couple verses out of the Bible every day and make their long speech about it. That's all they ever did. And it was never satisfying to me. And I definitely felt like I wasn't close to the Lord at all, except for a few times when the Holy Spirit just punched me in the face and was like, you need to listen right now, because that's not right, or you need to be doing this, or whatever the case may be. That happened plenty of times. It happened a lot, especially after I fell away into the wrong crowd, because there was always something trying to pull me back. And I didn't know what it was, because I didn't really have that relationship with the Holy Spirit. I'd never really felt like I had a strong relationship with the Holy Spirit. And so about 2 years into our relationship, there just hit a certain point to where we weren't getting along anymore. And there was a lot of things that went on. Whenever I first asked her to be my girlfriend, I told her how I didn't celebrate certain holidays and like how I do certain things, and she lied to me right off the bat and said, "Oh well, I don't do that anyway. I don't like any of that stuff anyway, so that's totally fine with me." So I went 2 years in this relationship thinking that everything was fine, and that, you know, it would work out at the end of the day. I proposed to her a year after we were dating, and we planned on getting married that next year after that. And so it was, I was excited. I was getting ready for it, and I thought that everything was just going to work out and be good. Sure, we had a couple problems, but what relationship didn't, you think, right? And so whenever it came to time at the end of that relationship, something just happened. Like, we ended up hanging out that day, and I was dead tired that day just because I was working all day and night. So just because she'd always be complaining about money. And so I would work just to show that I wanted to provide, that I actually cared. And so, but she didn't appreciate that whatsoever. And so as this day went on, I was dozing off, and I was dead tired that day. And so she was mad at me over it. And in in the whole car ride back when I was dropping her off at her house at the end of the day, she just was hating on me and my family the entire car ride back. And I didn't really think too much about it. I was like, oh, it must be that time of the month or something like that. And I was just too tired to care, honestly. But after she was done talking, I suddenly got a burst of it felt like adrenaline or energy. And I hopped up and I just said, in 1 week, I'm going to be a completely different person. You're either going to love me or you're going to hate me. But I know you're going to hate me. And then after that, she was quiet, and I was sitting there thinking, why did I say that? That's such a weird thing to say, because I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking anything of that. So I was just like, whatever, I'll have to think about it. And so I drop her off, and as I'm headed home, I feel this urgency to pray. And as I'm praying, I'm just doing my normal praying and talking, and I'm apologizing and repenting. I'm just like, I'm sorry I haven't talked to you in such a long time, Lord, because I fell away and fell into a lot of the wrong things that I shouldn't have done in the first place. And I knew that. And then obviously I was praying about just that whole relationship, because I was like, there's just something not right about it. Like, what do I need to do to fix it? Obviously, that's what I wanted to do, was to fix it, because I've invested 2 years into this relationship already, and we were going to get married like just a few months later. And God just told me, He just actually spoke to me and said, you have a decision to make. He said, you have the choice to choose her and have the life you think you always wanted, to have a family, to get married, and to all that, because that's what I always wanted since I was like 10 years old. Or to choose the life I have for you, the life you were born to live, a life more abundant, and you will feel fulfilled, where if you choose the latter, you'll never be fulfilled and you'll never accomplish anything. And immediately I accepted God's call and just said, well, Lord, of course I'd choose you every time. And as soon as I said that, a weight was lifted off me, and I knew what I needed to do. And so that 1 week, like what I told her, I changed that 1 week. It was a visible difference to me and my entire family, because they'd all tell you, yeah, he's completely different than he used to be, because I'm like, it's night and day difference. And as that week went on, I was praying a lot more. I read my Bible every day. I was a total Jesus freak. I was a maniac at that point about it. And I was preaching at her every day, and I was learning so much so fast that it was overwhelming to her. And she didn't like it at all. And so, as I said, at the end of the week, she hated me, She ended up hating me at the end of the week, and we broke up, and I honestly felt more relieved than anything. I wasn't really sad about it. I feel like I wasted a lot of time where I could have been doing what I was supposed to be doing the whole time, And that relationship really just held me back and away from that. And that was the thing that bothered me the most about it. So, as time went on, I completely got over pretty quickly, because I knew that God was with me. And I had full faith that I knew where I was going, but I didn't know what I was doing yet. And so a few months later down the line, I met up with this random guy that I bumped into Panera. He heard me talking about Jesus to one of my friends and just walked up to us and was like, "Are you guys talking about Jesus? That's awesome, you know." And we had a quick little conversation and kind of just hit it off after that. And so we ended up just talking about a lot of different things, and he asked me what I felt like I was meant to do. Like, was I an evangelist, a preacher, a teacher? Like, well, what am I supposed to do is what he asked me. And I was like, I don't know. I've never really thought about it too deeply. All I know is that I'm called to do something. Maybe I'm supposed to do a little bit of everything because that's kind of how I am. I like to be doing multiple things at the same time. But I wasn't 100% sure, so I couldn't give him a straight answer. And so after that, as I was driving home, I was just praying and asking God, what am I supposed to do? What am I meant to do? Because I know you've called me for something, but I don't know what it is yet. And I want to know what to do next. And then God just told me, well, you're an evangelist. You're an evangelist and a reformer. And I was like, oh, nice, okay, I could see that, you know, I could see myself as an evangelist, because that kind of fits my personality of who I changed into after that week, because I became a lot more of a, I guess you'd say loving person. You know, it's like more of a, I want to love as God loved me, and I want to help and save everyone I come across, and that's kind of the mindset I've changed into over the past months, and it's just a really cool thing to know what I'm supposed to do now. And so after I was told that, I got home and I told my dad, and I was like, I think I'm supposed to be an evangelist, but you know, what does that all entail? What does that really mean, you know? And he was like, well, that's pretty funny. I was just told you were an evangelist today as well. And I was like, well, that's good. I'm not crazy. That's a good confirmation for me. So now I don't have to worry about that I'm thinking of things, you know? Because I know we all struggle with that at times. But if you ask God for a sign, He'll always give it to you, especially if He wants you to do something. And it was just an awesome experience. And after that day, I've grown a lot more and overcome a lot of things, and I've just become a better person in general from where I started. And I'm so thankful for everything and everyone that I've been able to meet and things I've been able to do so far, because there's a lot more to come. So I'm excited to see what happens next, but thank you for listening to my story.